Hi again, Firooza.
Hi, Michelle.
Last week we were so honored to hear from you how you came to the path of yoga and how, in fact, the path of yoga came to you. And it was so inspiring and it's ignited more questions. So that's why we've asked to chat to you some more because everything you've told us has ignited further intrigue from us. So thank you very much for gracing us once again with your presence and your time.
It's a pleasure speaking to you, Michelle, and always a pleasure talking about Guruji and all the people I love. So, anytime.
Thank you. Oh, okay, then we'll make it regular. Firooza, last week you spoke to us a lot about how you came to yoga and how yoga came to you, actually, and the beginnings of it. And one of the analogies that you used that stood out very much for me was when Guruji or Mr. Iyengar was standing in front of you in that class. He was like a ferocious, uncaged lion, not behind bars. He was there in front of you and very charismatic, maybe a little bit fearsome, but he was there in front of you. And you said that both he and Father Joe were very much an inspiration for you. They were your inspiration. So when I thought about that, I thought, well, what did that, if you don't mind my asking, what do you actually mean that they inspired you? Because it's one thing to maybe impress you or have an effect on you, but you were inspired. Is that something you can articulate? Yes.
Yeah, yeah, probably. See, when you're inspired, it's like, somebody gets into you and tells you, there is somebody inside you telling you that this is what you must do. That's an inspiration. Inspired. There's something that's happening inside you, right? Like an intuition, inspiration. So aspiration is when I speak out, so that's an external, expression. Inspiration is an internal expression. So both my teachers, I said the first teacher, Father Joe, as well as Guruji, Gitaji, Prashantji, all of them have been very inspiring for me because they, in a way, meeting them, associating with them, led me to be fascinated about the subject of yoga, first of all, led me to spend more time to want to know it, led me to also appreciate it, enjoy it, led me to embrace it. So all those were my inspirations. I was in, so the life I led thereafter, even in my personal life or whatever choices I made in life, whether they were academic choices, personal choices, lifestyles, social life, everything has been in some way or the other being touched by these inspirations. So I am what I am today because of that. If I hadn't met them, I might be a different person doing something else in life. So I don't know what. At this moment, I can't think of what, but I'm sure things would have been different. So they kind of molded, not intentionally, but they molded my life in many ways because of the space they made inside me, in my heart, in my head. And there was always, so I will also tell you that even when I was younger, I mean, there will always be a thought at the back of my mind that if I do this, what would Guruji say? What would he think? Will he appreciate, forget appreciate, will he approve of what I'm doing? Am I doing the right thing? So he was always a benchmark for me. So I think many a times I might have been saved from making a wrong decision just because I reflected and I said, what would Guruji do if he was in my place? Or how would he look at what I'm doing? Would he approve of what I'm doing? Would I be up in his eyes? Would I be upheld in his mind? Will I have his approval, his respect? Or will I lose respect in his eyes for what I do? And that's the last thing I wanted. So in that sense, he became my benchmark for many decisions I took in life. I'm not saying I didn't make mistakes. I'm sure I did. And I'm sure that there may be things which he disapproved of. I don't know. Not that he ever said it. But this is so when I say inspiration, it means much more than just being impressed. I was not just impressed by
Yes.
them, or they were not just kind of, temporary heroes. And yes, initially it could be that, somebody, when you're very young and you like somebody or like the personality, you want to copy it. Imitation is the first form of flattery. So you want to flatter somebody, you try to become like them. So I'm sure in many ways I was trying to be like them also, consciously, unconsciously. So that was there, of course. But apart from that, as I said, they became a major part of, and well, Father Joe was in my life the first probably 10 years of my yogic journey. And thereafter, his journey took him away to different things, and he had this Kripa Foundation he still has. So my association with him was much less. Let's say after the first 5 or 6 years, it was gradually reduced, and then much less thereafter. But with Guruji, that was more and more because I had a place to go to. There was Pune, so I would go regularly to Pune, associate with him, associate with Geeta Ji, Prashantji, do lessons there, study in the library. So that association, continued in a stronger way. So in that sense, he remained my, as I said, that it was important for me not to uh, make him feel, not to let him down. Let's say anything I did should be in a way his approval, unspoken, I suppose. So I kept that in mind, and as I said, I must have made many mistakes, and I may have done things which he may not have approved of, but I tried my best to, maintain that purity of my thought and action, such that I would remain in his respect.
That's a great explanation. It's made me think of another question. Um, you speak about uh, the seeking the approval of your guru, and I know in my life that I have been down a path where I've tried to seek the approval of a very important person in my life or in yoga, and it has backfired, and it could be a dangerous thing to seek someone else's approval rather than relying on one's own heart. So I wonder if you could comment on that, please.
No, so if you are relying on your own heart because this is what your heart says.
Right.
Your heart is not always right. Your heart
Yes,
may
I
not always be
know.
right. So you might end up. Well, let's put another parallel with Guruji. I could have had another person as my guru. I could have accepted somebody else as my guru and followed that person blindly or looked for approval. And I may have, it may not have been the right thing. I may have regretted it later. Things could have gone wrong. And there are n number of examples in the world where this has happened. There are a whole lot of so-called spiritual masters and gurus who are not really genuine, and a lot of people surrender themselves and they find themselves in a mess. So that's also one fact of life. But probably, as I always say, I must have done something good
Mm.
in my past that I found this person, and I just had an inner instinct to just stick on and stay on and never look for anybody else. There were many times when uh, I was, I mean, I met people who would talk about other people, other inspiring people, and there would be temptations put towards me to follow somebody else. There are other gurus, other teachers, why don't you try them? Well, I was not closed, so I was not dogmatic for that matter. And I know that Guruji would have never wanted me to be. So I did open my mind. I read a lot of books. I heard a lot of people. I even met a few people as and when the opportunity came up and somebody would introduce me to someone or go for a satsang or go for a lecture or, so I have exposed myself. I've not closed my doors and the doors of my mind. So it's not that I was absolutely dogmatic from day one, but every time I looked out, I looked back in and I felt that what I'm following is the right path. The person I'm following is the right one for me. Everything else that I did, in a way, corroborated the fact that I was on the right path. So I had no reason to doubt or to leave. And the heart, as you mentioned, the heart, my heart said, this is it for me. I'm very happy with this, and this is what I connect with, and this is what I'm going to do. So there was no need for me to look elsewhere, look for another guru, things like that. I didn't feel the need for it. Okay? So I don't know whether that's rational or that's emotional, but this is the way it worked in my life. Every time I thought otherwise, or somebody induced me to think otherwise, I got back to the point and I said, no, I'm quite sure that this is the right path, that I am following the right path. And believe me, there were a lot of people who did that to me. Says, oh, you don't know what real yoga is about. There are many other things. You are just, you're just a fledgling. You are just a kid. You are just very innocent. You don't know anything about it. This is not the real thing. You have to look elsewhere. And I looked. It's not that I didn't look. So I armed myself with information. That's how I went on to reading a lot. I went on to listening a lot. I heard lectures and I attended, sessions. Well, not yoga sessions in that sense, asana pranayama, but philosophy and
Hmm.
thought. And every time I would come back and say, I am on the right path, and I have no doubt about it. So this is
Right.
how it happened, and that is why it became more and more important for me to feel the connection and keep the connection with Guruji, whatever it was. It's
I
not that he
understand.
was all sugar and nice with us. He was not always sugary, right? He could be very harsh. He was a hard taskmaster. He would call a spade, and he would not spare you when you went wrong. So that was also another benchmark of a very good teacher. He did not want us to stick to him because he wanted more disciples. He did not flatter us to stay on with him. In fact, I have realized that every real guru, I don't know whether I should say this or they are the right words to say, but real guru or true teachers or selfless teachers, they always try to push the student away. They'll do everything to make sure that you have all the reasons to go away. But then if you stick on and if they see your sincerity, then they will accept you.
I understand. That's amazing. That's
And
an
there is
amazing
another
insight.
thing in tradition, in Indian tradition, whether it's yoga, whether it's music, that once the guru holds your hand, then he doesn't leave your hand.
Oh, that's beautiful.
Once there is a trust and faith between guru and shishya, there is absolute implicit faith. Then the student also will have implicit faith. So you ask me, isn't it dangerous? Once you accept it, then there's no question of danger. So it wasn't dogmatic to start with, but eventually, at the end of it, when there's a total acceptance, then whatever the Guru says, you do, because you have implicit faith, and you
Hmm.
know that he will never ever take you on the wrong path. So that is the relationship, and that needs to be developed. It doesn't happen overnight. And that is what I found, at least on my part, that's what I felt about my teachers. And I know that that's what Guruji did for many of us. I'm not the only one, but I include myself in those ones because I know that for all his firmness and his, being a taskmaster, he wanted us to learn. So
Yeah.
he was very quick to notice the fact that we are not working hard enough, that we are not sincere enough, and he would take us to task. But at the same time, outside of class, the love would be flowing from his mannerisms, his eyes, his expressions, everything. So we have received both, If you're the heart taskmaster, we've been at the end of receiving a lot of love for him also. Not only love, but also concern. Okay, I'll give you a simple example now that you're asking me. You can see a spot on my lips here. There's a dark spot.
Yes.
Okay?
Yes.
So I think it was about after the birth of my second child when I was in my late 30s. I had a similar spot on the side, which I had now too. And so he just looked at me and said, "What is this?" And I said, "I don't know. It's just come." He says, "What is this? You're not taking care of yourself?" He was concerned that I had this spot. You see, so that small concern, even today I haven't taken it seriously. So these spots came and they went away on their own after 10 years, and then postmenopause will come back again. And some of my friends threatened me that one day your lips will become black. So I said, it's to be, it's to be. But I'm just remembering this one instance. It was in Mumbai. He had come visiting us. There was a function. We went to meet him. And in the middle of all that, he looked at me straight and he said, how did you get that? I said, I don't know. So I'm just giving a very small instance of his concern and love. You know? So on one side, he's a hard taskmaster, but on the other side, he was like a father. He
And
cared
very
for us. So I said,
compassionate.
yes, once he's held your hand, he's not going to let you go. He cares for you all the time.
Yeah, it's remarkable. Thank you. That explains it very well. Thank you.
I'll tell you another story here.
Yes.
Now, it was in the early times when I used to go to Pune quite often. And, whenever I would get an opportunity, I would go and request him that can I stay at the institute. And those rooms you see down, which Prashanti uses now, and there is a storeroom and all, they were actually like hostel rooms, and we used to be given them to stay. So I would be staying in one of those rooms. So one day, I think it was a Thursday evening or Friday evening, I'm not too sure, I finished my work at the college where I was teaching, and then I said, okay, now I can take these 2 days off, and I don't really have any lectures to teach. So whatever other things I can, not necessarily go to my college. So I went off to Pune and I landed there, and I was sitting in the library. It was evening time, and he comes down to the library and he says, "Do you know your prime minister is dead?" I said, "I don't know." That was the day Indira Gandhi, who was the then prime minister, was assassinated. There was no way I would have known the news because, when you go to the institute, you are out of the world. There were no mobiles, no internet, no nothing. So I was shocked and I said, "Oh, really?" So he said, "Yes." He says, "You better not go out. Everything is closed. Pune is closed down because they're expecting riots." So I said, "Fine. Thank you, Guruji, for letting me know. And I'll be fine. I don't need to go anywhere." I said. He says, "What will you do for dinner?" I'll see. I said, "It's okay if I don't eat one day, or I'll see what I have." And that was it. And at about maybe 7 in the evening or something, there's a knock on my door and I'm sent a bowl of food. And it says, I don't remember now who brought it, but I think it was Savita. It says, "This is what the family has for dinner." And so they shared their family dinner with me. This was his concern. So there are many such instances, but when you ask me this, so these little things makes him also your guru, not only what he taught on the net and about the subject of yoga. So philosophy spills out in life itself. Thought spills out in your actions in life. Otherwise, one can be a very great philosopher who can talk very intellectual philosophy from a huge platform and have international fame. But at a personal level, that is not seen anywhere at all. But that was not so for Guruji. A very, very warm person, very real person, extremely human in every way. So out of the class, he roared like a lion in the class when he taught, but he laughed with a roar after class, outside class. So what his laugh was like, very open and loud and thunderous and no holds barred. When he enjoyed something, he enjoyed something. Threw his head back and laughed. And many times he cracked a lot of jokes also.
So he was very human.
Yeah, absolutely. So if you say, how is he an inspiration? He's an inspiration in every way. Okay.
Yeah.
I mean, well, we all have parents. So I also have biological parents. But I don't think my father inspired me as much as Guruji did.
I'm sure. I don't think anyone could have inspired you as much as Guruji.
Yes.
Yeah.
So I was destined for it, and this is what came to me in life, and I took it, and I'm no regrets ever for that.
So, Firooza, you also spoke a lot about, and you've touched on it now, this transformation that started to happen. So it happened mentally and physically, and even you said even your chakras started. Something changed there. Can you just discuss that a little bit?
I wouldn't use the terms chakras and all, but I am sure that there was. So that is what the esoteric philosophy is about, and esoteric physiology is about. That when there are certain transformations inside you, it is the chakras which have been mobilized and energies have been mobilized. So yes, so the changes were on physical level, physiological level, mental, psychological, emotional level. I was, well, uh, so what do I say? I was a shy person. I was very quiet, not very confident. And and also I think, though I was physically inclined, I used to take part in sport and run and like to climb mountains and all that. So I was physically inclined. I never excelled in anything, really. Never excelled. So couldn't ever push myself to the point of excelling. And then I was laid back. It didn't matter to me that I didn't excel. So that was also another thing. So I told you I didn't even join the class because I was laid back. So all those things changed. I was motivated enough to excel because I understood, actually, I only understood the meaning of what is to excel after meeting my yoga teachers. So the meaning of excelling was just not opened out to me. So to excel initially was for me, I think when I was a student, was to top a class or get the highest marks, or to be kind of
Yes.
stand rank, to have an achievement in ranking. And that was never of interest to me. I never worked hard towards it. But with Guruji, I realized that to excel is not about competing with anybody else, but it's about bringing yourself and your potential, exploring your potential to bring it to the highest level of actualization. The manifestation of what you can be, that needs to be explored, and that's what excelling is about. And this was very exciting for me. It was not about reaching somewhere, winning a medal, coming top rank. I was never an achiever or a competitor. I still am not. But that was so inspiring that, it was very fascinating to them. So the first time in my life, I started exploring myself. You see, as a
Yes.
student, I was an average student. So let me tell you that after I finished school, I was a good artist, so my mother encouraged me to join art school, which I did for a little bit of time. And then my father was not very happy about it because he thought I should have a more stable life, as after all, we are Indians. So girls in India should settle down, marry, look after home, maybe do a small job as a secretary in an office. So this was his dream for me, which was not at all fascinating for me. But anyway, long and short, for whatever number of reasons, I dropped out of art school and I started to do a job as he would be happy for me to do. And somewhere down the line, I was motivated enough by peers around me to also get back to studying distance education. So I was 2 years behind my batchmates as far as academic education was concerned for the 2 years that I went to art school, 2 or 3 years. So when I decided to get back to academics, my father really didn't think I would make it. He said, "Look, you've never been a very sincere student in school, and you were never inclined, and you never topped anything. So why are you wasting your time?" But as many things, when something is meant to be, you don't do it, but many forces come together and it just happens. So it so happened that I got enrolled for my graduate course and I had to take my first exam. And I was told quite, quite, my father used to make fun of me because I was still his girl, I suppose. No, you're not going to make it, so why are you wasting your time, blah, blah, blah. So well, but I still went through it, very apprehensive about, because I hadn't given a an academic exam for the last probably 3 4 years, and but when it came to the results, and I said, oh, I hope I've at least passed, and I found that I was a rank holder. I found my name somewhere on top of the list where I was not looking for it, and
Amazing.
I couldn't believe it myself. So if you ask for transformation, this is it. One more example of it. Okay. So my
Yes.
mental faculties, so my possibilities, what I could do was very untapped till then. But with the help of yoga, many things were tapped. So many things could come out of me, whether they were physical achievements like on the mat and in the asanas. Yes, that was my physical, endeavor to bring myself to perfection, balance, alignment as taught by Guruji. focus on the breath, focus on my mind. That helped me in my academics. I really didn't have to work hard. And I got the gold medal at the university in philosophy.
Wow.
And it was like, I mean, every time I'd say, is that me? Is that for me? Is that really me? It was quite unbelievable for me. I never looked back after that. Again, I didn't take it as an achievement, but as you'll understand that philosophy took a different meaning for me because of yoga as compared to other students in my probably in my batch. So the way they studied was an academic study.
Right.
The way I studied
From the
was
books.
yes, where I studied was book plus what my teacher taught me, what I heard Guruji, and my personal experiences on the mat and inside me. So all those combined together probably gave me a different perspective to the subject
Yes.
than other students perhaps. So which is why probably I it's just at the end of it, it's just a rank and marks, but I scored better. That's all I can say. That I scored better. It doesn't mean that others were not good or it was just incidental that when I wrote the paper, whatever the reason. I'm just saying that I did amazingly well, which was not expected of me. So if you are talking about transformation, all these transformations are there for me to understand, which I didn't think of at that time.
At the time.
I didn't think at that time, I didn't analyze all that, but this is what has happened in my life, and these are the
Yes.
changes. So then it was a passion that since yoga has helped me so much. Okay, I mean, I was physically also not very strong. There would be at least 2 or 3 times in a year when it was predicted by my family that I would be sick. I would be down with fever. I would be, like having the normal, seasonal flu or whatever. It was very normal that all these things should happen to me. But suddenly I realized somewhere in mid-20s that I haven't fallen sick for many years now. So that thing is not happening anymore. And I could go out for hikes and I climbed the mountains and I pushed my body. I was stronger. Now, without any other athletic activity, I went mountain climbing. I did my Himalayan mountain courses. I did no other training besides yoga for that. No other. As people would go, weightlifting or gymming or jogging, nothing. My training was simply yoga. More standing poses, more pranayam, and
Makes
that
you very
got me
strong. Yes.
so all this was my journey. So obviously, now if you were in my place, you would also say that you were on the right path. It's very clear that I
Yes,
wasn't on the wrong
you
path.
were on a predestined, as you said, you were destiny's child.
Yes,
So
absolutely.
it's actually one of my other questions, but it's going to be difficult, I think, for you to answer because it was the path was so there. So my question is, how do you find that balance between allowing something to happen and making it happen? Because with you, you allowed it, it was there, but you had to also make it happen. But
No,
the
so Michelle,
balance
I
is,
never made anything happen.
you see.
I never made anything happen. I always allowed it to happen.
Yes, that's a big lesson, I think, for many
And
people, especially.
that's very much me. I have always taken a leap of faith all throughout my life, allowing things to happen and taking them as they come, and never wanting to make anything happen. I can't remember anything where I made anything happen.
Well, what's your advice then? Because I think 90% of even people who practice yoga are I mean, especially our Iyengar yoga, we're quite goal oriented, for example, and we have goals and we have plans in life. And that's maybe it's a Western thing. I don't know, but most of the people I know,
No,
that's what
it's
they
not
work.
Western, but just you're asking the wrong person. That's all.
Oh,
I'm
yes,
not qual- I'm not qualified
Firooza,
to say that.
we
I'm
need
not
your advice.
qualified to say that. I wouldn't advise you. You follow what your heart says. If I wanted to make things happen, yes. For example, if I wanted to achieve Kapotasana or Natarajasana,
Yes,
because I knew that I have to demonstrate it. For example, for Guruji's 70th birthday, the Mumbai students put up a demonstration, which is there on YouTube by the way now. You could see it. So we worked very hard and to make it happen. So there was a purpose to make it happen. So
yes.
for such reasons, I did make it happen. I did try to make things happen. But apart from that, there was no reason for me to make anything happen. I just let things unfold. And yes, I would think, like everybody else, let me tell you that I was also naive and I used to dream about what meditation would be like and what an experience would be like to be meditating, or when you reach the zero, or when there is nirvana, or those kind of spiritual goals which I used to read about. And I would imagine about them for sure. Okay, and I would definitely think of how I could make it happen. So such thoughts were there. But I didn't go all out to make it happen. I just continued the path that was taught to be my guru. And of course, let me also tell you that the guru doesn't tell you everything. If 1/10 is revealed to you, then the other 9 portions reveal themselves to you. Guru doesn't reveal 10 out of 10 to you. He teaches you one or two things, and then if you follow the path, the other things start getting unfolded before you. So I kept taking things as they came, and whatever little I know now is in that process of whatever was taught to me. I followed it, and other things opened out for me. I understood them better, and I'm very, very fortunate that along with Guruji, I had Gitaji to hold my hand. I have Prashantji to hold my hand still. So their inputs were like, so just like you have a master who writes a book, or a great, a great piece of wisdom, and then you have the other disciples to write commentaries on them, like you have the Aranikas and the Upanishads. So you have various subtext to the main text to open out the purport of that text. So like that, Gitaji and Prashantji are those subtexts who open out the purport of Guruji's teaching. And I'm very fortunate to have them. If they were not there, I would be more or less on my own to open them out. But I'm sure that somebody else would have come in place of that to help me out. Something would have happened, right? So we all have our paths. So this was what my path was. So there was no great trying to make things happen, except for those small things about achieving the asanas or perfecting demonstrations, or to please your master, to please your guru. That when I perform, so you are in class and you want to do it to the best so that he will be pleased. If you are demonstrating for him, then you want to do it your best because he should not be let down and he would be pleased. For those reasons, I would want to make things happen. But for my own personal needs, there was no need for me to make things happen. Whether it was on the mat or off the mat, I've not made anything happen in my life. So I'm not a great achiever in that sense. Whether on the personal front, financial front, yoga front, any front, I've never made anything happen. I've never ever gone and told anybody, please call me, I want to teach. That's never happened.
So very interesting. Yes, that's a great answer. Thank you. So you often talk about the texts and reading and studying. So again, for the average practitioner, what is your advice? I mean, we just battle to find time to get on the mat and practice and maybe do some pranayama sometimes. I often don't even know where to start. You said the sutras would dance in front of you on the pages, and I'm going, wow. I mean, I haven't even read much about the sutras and all the other texts. I mean, for someone
that's a way of saying that the sutras started to make sense to you.
Yes.
Okay, so well, initially I was like everybody else. They were just sutras. They sounded nice, okay. And then we tried to remember a few, like the Atha Yoga Anushasana, Yoga Chitta Vritti Niyuta. So there would be only 2 or 3 sutras that you could quote or you could understand. And even as a teacher, those days I was also a teacher then. I told you I started teaching within 2 years of my practice.
Yes.
Taught children or adults. So you can imagine what a raw teacher I was and how little I knew. But whatever little I knew was a lot for my students, apparently. They were quite impressed. So this is how it is with, life. The foolishest and the most mediocre teacher will have some student as a follower. Every teacher will have at least one follower. So it's not great to have a student or a follower. Because if I am at a level, then if the student is even at a lower level, then that person becomes my follower.
Yes.
So I was like everybody else, but as so my first Well, I read the sutras like an academician initially, and then the book started coming out. There was this book which uh, Guruji had translated, Greek translation of sutras, and then I think the summary was written by Prashantji. It's a yellow book on Yoga Sutras, much before the lighter Yoga Sutras came in. So that was like a baby. In fact, that's what you should take up if you don't have it. A baby book on Yoga Sutras, where the sutras are explained very briefly and simply. So that's where the starting happened. Then Guruji would refer to them every time he gave a lecture on Guru Purnima, on his birthday celebrations, annual days, etc., etc. So he would be referring to them, and then I would think that, oh, I understand what he's saying because I have read that, and I would connect.
Right.
But obviously, I didn't understand much. And then would come Geetaji with her, responses, and Prashantji with his explanations, and particularly with Prashantji because he is so much of a philosopher.
Yes.
Geetaji was more practical, as she spent most of her times practically helping to achieve Guruji's work and dreams and to run the institute. And not that she hadn't studied philosophy or she wasn't a philosopher, she was very much so, but she couldn't devote that much time to that kind of learning and study. So she would probably talk less about philosophy and more about
Yes.
solving people's problems. And you know how she was so compassionate about therapy.
Yes.
So that was Geetaji. So when I listened to them, then things started falling more and more in place, and you understand a little more and more. And that's how every sutra and every chapter starts unfolding. I must tell you that it's still unfolding for me. I've still not understood all of it. I'm still halfway. I mean, I'm still first two chapters, Samadhi Pad, Sadhan Pad, Vibhuti Pad to an extent. The Kaivalya Pad I have read many times, but I kind of, it's like saying, oh, I'll do it later. I'll do it like next year or the year after when I'm done with this. So it's still a pending thing for me, actually. So I'm no expert. I'm still on my journey. I'm still on
But
my journey.
but for us, I think that the ones who haven't even started, I mean, it's quite overwhelming because there's so much. So I don't know what your advice would be. Do you attend Zoom? I do, for example, listen to Prashanti on Zoom, and it does open up a lot. It makes you realize exactly what you're saying, what they've been saying about something. If you
Okay,
have the
so
time to listen.
yeah, so
But the
I told you
dedication,
that
sorry, Firooza, sorry, you said, you'll do it next year. That's what I'm saying. We have these books at home, and you think, when am I going to open this book and start understanding what's in here? It's a discipline. It's a discipline to get involved
you
in
know
the book.
Indian philosophy with its karma kram, that thing about your actions and getting
Yes.
your the fruits of your action. You have plenty of chance, dear. You will be born many, many, many times. So don't worry, not in this life, the next life, the life after that. So we have a lot of chance. Well, so many things may remain shelved, but jokes apart, as I told you, the guru never reveals 100% of any knowledge. He'll reveal 10%, and the other 90% might reveal itself, or you'll have to reveal yourself. Like that, when a teacher teaches, like Prashantji, you might absorb only 10% of what he's teaching.
Yes.
90% of what he's teaching you may not understand,
Yes.
but that doesn't matter. That doesn't matter.
So there should not be any frantic rush to try and get to this point. That is what you're
No.
saying.
If you understand the 10%, stick
Yeah.
to the 10% and try to understand it completely. If you understand that 10% well, then the others will start opening themselves to you. Because
Mm.
knowledge is linked. It's not information which is standing in a line, okay, done with me, now go to the next, go to the next, go to the next, go to the next. They're all linked together like cogs in a wheel. So once you have all the cogs in place, the wheel will start rotating. When the wheel starts rotating, the knowledge will present itself to you. So understanding every time will be better and better and better. And that is the live process of learning, which is non-academic way of learning. And that is the tradition. Guru Shishya Parampara is like that. Teacher teaches, student listens, there is Shravana, hearing starts with hearing, there is Manana, what you hear gets fixed in your mind. Sometimes, what you listen to goes off like water on a duck's back. So you don't even know what to do. But if something gets absorbed, then that is the manam. It goes in your mind. If it goes in your mind, then you have food there, like a cow. It brings up and chews again, right? You know that the cow
Yes.
swallows and brings up and then chews
Yes.
on it again. So if you have some food in your head, then you will bring it up and ruminate on it. That is chintana. The thought process will start then. So the wheel will start rolling. So it will take a lot of time for this process, then something will get absorbed. So then the nididhyasa or the learning will take place. So don't try to understand 100% of what the teacher is teaching. If you can get 10%, hold on to it and make that your starting point for understanding and learning. Otherwise, you'll be overwhelmed.
Well, exactly. It could be very overwhelming. That's beautiful. Thank
Especially
you.
when knowledge is given, it's not, today it's not possible to have the traditional Guru Shishya where you have a one-on-one relation with Guru. We were lucky that we had a lot of that with Guruji, though we learned in general classes. But today it's not possible for everybody. Like on Zoom, the world is opened out, so a teacher will have 300 students in front of him, right? Not everybody is going to take everything that is given. Right? And then you don't have to worry about whether you got 100% and the other 299 people what they got. So if you get 10%, that is your bit. Take it, go ahead with it. That's the way to start. There's no other way.
Good advice. Firooza ji, when Prashant talks, he speaks a lot about the connecting of the mind, the body, the breath. That's for me. That's my impression. He speaks a lot about that. So I mentioned to you once before. Where does the soul fit in the soul? Because mind, body, breath, and I'm trying to understand where the soul connection is.
So now that you mentioned Prashantji, only in the last lesson is lesson number 28, which I just finished synopsis a few days ago. He has mentioned how the koshas, the Annamaya kosh, you're familiar with the koshas? So in the Taittiriya Upanishad and the Taittiriya Aranyakas, they are mentioned as Atma, Annamaya Atma, Pranamaya Atma, Manomaya Atma, Vijnanamaya Atma, Anandamaya Atma. So Atma is the word for soul. So soul is there in every kosha, every aspect of you. The soul is inherently, essentially there. Whether it is in the physical body, the physiological body, the pranic body, the astral body as it's called, or the manomaya kosha, that which is, your memory archives of all your memories and past and possible future possibilities of what you can be. So that is where, so the soul is very much there, all over, everywhere, at all times, in your embodiment, in your embodied condition. Understand? Now, sometimes, depending on which text, if you don't limit yourself only to Yoga Sutras, and if you go on to the Upanishads or the Vedanta and other texts, then there are synonymous words. What Sankhya calls Purusha, Purusha as the self, because Sankhya as a metaphysical philosophy doesn't talk about the soul, okay, and doesn't talk about God. So it is a dualistic philosophy where you have Purusha, the self, and Prakriti, the universe. Everything happens because of these two. Okay, when two come together, then a third is created, like any kind of creation. So there is this whole cosmology of Sankhya which talks about how first principle got created, the Mahat, and then the Buddhi came out of that, and then the Tanmatras, and then the 5 elements came out of it, and the ego, and all that. So there is a whole story of creation. Okay, so that is, but in the whole process, the self is immutable, indestructible, and remains pure, except for the ignorance of Prakriti, which considers itself to be attached to Purusha, and then making the Purusha to believe that it is undergoing all kinds of mutations. That is the avidya. I'm saying it as simply as I possibly can because otherwise it's a profound subject. So, so there is no separate Atma as such in Sankhya philosophy mentioned, right? But otherwise, the word Atma can be used synonymous to the self or Purusha, if you like.
Purusha.
Yeah. Or sometimes the word Brahma is also equated to Atma. So Vedanta, for example, certain Vedantic philosophies talk about the individual self and the universal self. So Jiva becomes the individual self and Atma becomes the universal self, or Paramatma, the supreme soul. So then the concept of God comes in. In Yoga Sutras also, Patanjali has mentioned Purusha Vishesha, the special, the Vishesha, the, uh, not the general but the specific, that one which is above all is Ishwar. So the word Ishwar is used for
Sure.
the supreme self or the supreme Purusha. So then there could be, so there are, see, I'm not here to comment on it. Then can be many commentaries of that. Does it mean that you are dividing Purushas into lesser ones and higher ones and God being supreme, who is, so there can be a lot of philosophical debate on it. This is not the place for it. So if you ask me about Atma, the self, it is essential you. It's in all of you, whether it's in the physical body, the pranamay kosh, the subtle body, the manomay kosh, vijnanmay kosh, anandmay kosh. Anandmay kosh is your that aspect of you which is the spiritual entity or the spiritual self. But Atma is not only in Anandamay, Atma is in all of you. As long as you are in this embodied state, all of you is Atma.
So you automatically connected to that. So, because he talks about connecting everything. That's what yoga is,
Yeah,
joining, connecting everything.
absolutely, absolutely. It's not just, so Prashantji may be talking now about connecting body, breath, and mind because
Yes.
they are the overt things that people will connect with. Everybody knows the body, everybody can feel the breath, and everybody has a mind. Okay, so they all of them belong to the Annamaya Kosh, the physical body, skeletal, muscular body, including mind, thought, the brain. Thoughts come at that level. But it is through that he wants you to connect to Pranamay Kosh. It's from this Annamay Kosh that you will have some understanding, awareness, and connection to the subtle body, which is prana, where the pranayam takes place. So at the moment, what his effort is to tell people that pranayam is not a physical process. It's not about how much more you are breathing, how much deeper you are breathing, how much longer you are breathing. It's not that. It's by transforming your breath, you need to connect to the subtle body, which is pranamaya kosh. When you do that, then all the subtle activities are going to take place there, which are not to be equated or calculated at a physical level because they are not physical. So, in fact, pranayam is best uh, experienced or um practiced when the breath is very, very, very subtle and not necessarily voluminously big. So that false notion or that dhamma, that uh, you know, misconceptions are what he wants to clear, and he's, I think, trying very hard because I think a lot of students, and particularly so in the West, and naturally so because Western students are not always in contact with Guruji, 12 years, 12 months of a year. They were not, even today they cannot be. So a lot of misconceptions are created in the West, and his teachings were to a large extent misinterpreted. If I want to demonstrate something to you, I need to use my body. You need to. So if Guruji wants to demonstrate pranayamic breath, there is a very popular video where he has. I think it's one of the demonstrations in the UK or US. I'm not too sure where he stands on the stage and takes that deep inhalation. Okay,
Yeah.
and then he says that was my inhalation, and then exhalation. So he demonstrates inhalations, exhalations to tell the audience what the breath can be like. Now that can be misinterpreted. A lot of people then think that pranayama is about making your breath as long as Guruji did, or as voluminously as he did. Well, yes, if you make your breath long and voluminous, if you develop that control, that is a very good stepping stone to have control on your breath for pranayama. But that's not the end of pranayama. That's not the goal of pranayama.
Beginning.
That's just the beginning. So that's what I think Prashant is trying to say and put across to people in very many ways in his own style. In his own style. But as I said earlier, he is only unfolding, and he claims it himself. He's only unfolding what Guruji taught. He's just kind of, giving you the reading between the lines of Guruji's teachings.
Right. Okay. Thank
Guruji
you.
was a special man. He did work which an ordinary person cannot do in 5 lifetimes. And I'm not only talking about the body of work, how much he wrote, or how many classes he took, or how many countries he covered. I'm not talking about that. I'm talking about the understanding of the subject of yoga as he unfolded. And you know that he, again in his case, if he had a guru who taught him, it was 1.1 of 100, which was taught to him. The rest was unfolded by him for himself.
Self-discovery. Yes.
Yeah. So,
Yeah.
so ordinary people like you and me don't manage to do that in one lifetime. So he had done a lot of work. So with the result that he was very quick. So I know when he used to teach, he would be very quick and he would be very impatient. One of the reasons why he was quick in the class and people considered him as hot-tempered is that he was very quick and we were very slow. And he just, wanted us to catch up with what he said. And he was, not able to he didn't like that we were not at his pace. So there was so much that he has given that hardly anybody could really understand all that he wanted to say. We had to really run with him. So now Prashantji is doing the job of, reading between the lines, whatever we missed, whatever we couldn't understand. So as I say, 100% is given, we take 1%, somebody takes 2%, somebody can take 10%, but there's the 90% which remains in the dark. So somebody has to unfold it for you. And Prashantji is the best person for it, not because he is his son. That's one of the qualifications, but because he has spent his entire life in that hermitage doing nothing but understanding the subject in Guruji's teaching. So who better than him?
It's a great privilege. Yeah, it's a privilege, yes.
And
It's like
Guruji
you
didn't
listen to Prashant for days.
Yes.
Just
And
listen
Guruji
to
didn't have the time to teach philosophy. He was so much, occupied propagating, spreading, and helping people with their backs and knees and necks and kidneys and whatever. He had so much compassion, like Gitaji also, that and very well that Carla will remember that the first time when I came with Gitaji to South Africa, and on the first lesson when Gitaji started teaching, I know I was with Raya on stage demonstrating the standing poses, and she went on with a philosophical explanation to that class. And then she spotted somebody with something wrong there in the middle of the class, and then the whole thing went off track, and she went into therapy to help that person. Because she was, it was not possible for her to let that person do what is wrong or what she thought was harmful for that person. So she also could not consistently stick to philosophy. Guruji could not consistently stick to teaching philosophy because their compassion led them to help people at the level people came to them. So most people came to them with physical ailments, and yoga was taught at a physical level. But Prashantji, as he himself says, is privileged. His father has laid a ground for him. He says, my father has done all that. Why should I be doing what he's already done? He's already propagated. Now it is time to do something else which he did not have the time to do, which is exactly what he is doing. If Guruji lived for another 100 years, that is what he would have been doing also. So this is the normal, natural progress in the subject. And all of us need to move with it. You can't remain at KG level. So what was
Yes.
taught by Guruji was what was needed for people at that time, needed by people at that time, and that's what he gave. But he had much more to give. And as I said, he was so fast and we were not able to run with him. So that's why he was quick. He would be, losing
Frustrated.
his temper. You're not following what I'm saying. You're not listening. This is not the way to do. And we have seen that. I don't know if you've seen that, but it was. I mean, everybody has a bit of an ego, and at that time you are, you are taken aback by his temper and his power there. But at the same time, you know that there is compassion behind it, and therefore you may have heard about this, that people felt very privileged if they got a whack from Guruji.
Yes, I've heard that. Because you never forget that touch.
So yes, everybody today, you want the soft touch. You want the teacher, the guru to praise you. That is my best student. But there people were dying to have a recognition from him in some form or the other, a correction from him in some form or the other. That was a kind of acknowledgement. So that was the difference. So he had much to give. Nobody could take it. Nobody had the power to receive it. So much was lost, I think, and some things were taken. Some things still remain to be unfolded. So I'm sure many generations after us will have much material to unfold and learn and study from his written works and from whatever. And then things left after him by Gitaji, Prashantji, and the other students who have been contributing to the world also. Okay, so there's a whole body of work which needs to be explored.
Yes, it's vast.
Very vast.
It's vast. I have one final question, Firooza. So and I'm sure you've been asked this many times, in this day and age, many of us are so disenchanted with what we see, and I know that you've got to look inside and work on what's inside, but the world is in a strange place. So when you were in South Africa, you spoke about the difference between accepting and protesting. So I'm not talking about running through the burning things, or protesting when you see something that maybe is unjust or unfair.
I remember that.
Yes, and I would just like to just ask you a bit more about that. So how do you accept when you might find it very difficult in your own heart to accept
okay, so so don't get me wrong. I don't mean that one should not protest. If something is wrong, it is wrong. In all cases, it is wrong, and it is always wrong. A wrong can never become right because you accept it. Get me right. A wrong can never become right just because you accept it. My acceptance is about the circumstances, the conditions, and the situations as they present themselves to me. But that does not mean that the wrong is to be accepted as right. That's not at all what I would have meant then, or I mean now. If something is wrong, I would stand up and protest. However, if by protesting it only means that I am hitting a blank wall, or if it is leading to a lot of unrest and violence and people are going to suffer, then I would rather not protest, but accept that this is the situation now. How can it be approached and handled to transform it? So
please, can you repeat that?
Yes. So to accept the situation the way it is now, so to recognize that this is how it is. Acceptance means the recognition that this is how it is. I cannot change it by just protesting, because it will only end up in more violence, more destruction perhaps. So I recognize that this is how it is, and now how can I, or what can I do to create some transformation? So not protesting is not a blanket never protest. That's not what I meant. Okay. So you do protest, but you do protest when the time is right. You do protest in the right way possible. You do protest with being rational, because here it's a matter of reason. It's not a matter of emotion. Most of the protests come out of emotion.
Yeah.
When protests come out of emotion, then it can. So it's like, violence only leads to more violence, and it can be an endless process, endless
Cycle.
chain,
Mm.
right? So if I quote Jesus, if you hit me on my right cheek, I will offer you my left. Now all of us can't do that really, but it only means that if you, by offering you my left cheek, I'm telling you that I'm not going to hit you back. If you hit me on my right cheek, I'm not going to hit you back. So what am I going to do? I'm going to offer you my left cheek, that if you are still having the anger, get rid of it, but I am not going to react in the same manner. However, I am not accepting the wrong as right. I will protest in a way to create a transformation for the right to triumph eventually, but in the right manner.
Like Gandhiji, perhaps.
Yes, yes,
Yes.
yes,
Yeah.
absolutely. Or like Nelson Mandela.
Yes. Yes. That's very apt. Yes. Thank you, Firooza. That explains that to me very succinctly. Thank you. Those were
Thank
my
you.
questions for today.
Yes, thank you. They were good questions, Michelle. And yes, you did kind of made me think and recall a lot and go back in memory lane again. So thank you. And
Thank you.
thank you, all of you. Thank you.